We want to welcome now Face the Nation moderator John Dickerson and CBS News correspondent Anthony Mason, both a part of last night's primetime coverage here at CBS. And John, as the certainly unexpected became history, what did you make of Hillary Clinton's decision not to speak to her supporters, if nothing else, at the Javits Center last night?
Well, it was, I mean, at first we sort of thought it was like, what John Kerry had done in 2004. The results aren't in, they're a little messy, we'll go to bed, wake up the next morning and do it. Nixon did the same thing in 1960. But then what was curious is that then she called Trump and then it was over. So in a sense, she still gets her moment to say goodbye to her supporters in the kind of light of day. Mm-hmm. Remember when she in 2008 when she gave her speech, she was able to pay to honor those people who came out, and so maybe that's a better way to do it. But she didn't deny Donald Trump his moment of victory either by being sort of petulant or something by when it was obvious she was going to lose. So maybe it worked out for the best because. We knew and were able to resolve it sort of at the end of the evening. Now she'll give her speech, and that'll be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, well.
Anthony, we talked so much yesterday about white, non-college educated men being sort of the secret to Trump's potential path.
Yeah.
And yet today, it's not just about white, non-college educated men. It's about a host of other different subgroups in the American public.
It was men, first of all, 53 to 41. He won male voters. It was whites, male and female, without college degrees. He won them 67 to 28%, more than 2 to 1. And then there was when we asked voters, what's the most important quality you're looking for? And what came out at number one, 39% said we want a candidate who can bring change. This was Donald Trump's territory. 83% of people who ranked that number one went for him. So now the other thing that's interesting is, going back to when the Access Hollywood tape came out, there were a lot of people who thought, and we saw Republican leaders abandoning Donald Trump, and all of a sudden his numbers upon Republican voters started going down. They all came back. He won evangelicals, he won conservatives, and he won 9 out of 10 Republicans. So they all came home in the end to Donald Trump.
What may be interesting is, given how much attention there was to the remarks he'd made about women, and how much that was a conversation throughout this campaign, the women, the non-college women who voted for Donald Trump, that's a big number too. Yeah. And also then the college-educated men. The Clinton campaign made a very concerted effort to go after college-educated men, saying to fathers, and there were ads where there were Republican men looking to camera and saying, I can't abide by what Donald Trump has said about women and then tell my kids that I voted for him. They made a strong push. Mm-hmm. And Hillary Clinton got swamped among white college-educated men. So the ads didn't pay off, I guess is my point.
And for all the talk of unfavorables, and perhaps helped by the fact that he was running against almost as unliked a candidate in Hillary Clinton, it seems those unfavorables were forgiven. To your point, really about change, that because something, if it was a pyramid, something was going to sit atop the pyramid. If it was change, all else fell by the wayside.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. And what you also saw is, while he had enthusiasm among those rural white voters, and they came out strongly, she ended up underperforming in 3 key groups. In young voters, she won 55%, she won 88% of African Americans, and she won 65% of Hispanics. But in each one of those cases, she did 5 points worse than Barack Obama did 4 years ago.
Essentially saying that a coalition is only as strong as its turnout. And I know.
Well, the last numbers we saw, it looked like the Hispanic turnout was up slightly. But her victory in Hispanics was lower. So net gain there, not what she was hoping for.
And yet, Donald Trump's support comes overwhelmingly from white Americans,
yes.
John.
Oh, yeah.
And we talk about demographic change in this country as it concerns the Democratic and Republican Party as they make their calculus for the road ahead. is the conventional wisdom out the window as far as
the population is still the population, and at the moment right now, Hillary Clinton has more of the popular vote than he does. So there is some real complexity here. When he talks about the forgotten America also, at the moment, based on his coalition that turned out for him, it is a non-urban forgotten portion of the population. So how now is he going to talk to that forgotten portion of the population that's in the cities? And what is he going to do about the 50 million plus people who voted for Hillary Clinton? And what is the Republican Party going to do about all of those groups? And that's a big open question. And it's going to be very interesting. One of the Republicans that I've been talking to about the challenge that Donald Trump poses to the party is this person said, it's going to turn the Republican Congress back into an organization that is its own thing, and it's going to have clashes with the Republican president, and it's going to be a real sort of like old-fashioned government where you have real conflicts between the Republicans in Congress and the Republican president.
It's interesting because one of the other things that came out early in the evening last night was that you had a huge percentage of voters were either angry or dissatisfied with government. And well, now the government, the man they voted for is the government, and they were rebelling against that government. Now it's their government. What are they going to do with it?
Well, and the numbers you speak to, almost 60%, 58% of voters said that they were either concerned or scared by a Donald Trump presidency. That's a huge number, and yet it also suggests there are many people. We've been discussing the idea today of perhaps not just tapping into fear, but weaponizing it. There were people who were avowedly scared of a Donald Trump presidency who still checked the box for him.
Yeah.
Well, because they were scared about a Clinton presidency more in some cases.
Yes.
And we've been weaponizing our politics in America on both the left and the right to make the opposition not just wrong, but the enemy for a while before this. And then this campaign supercharged that existing trend in American politics. And now we'll see what happens.
John, you talk about the fisticuffs potentially between Senate, congressional Republicans and the executive branch, but it's also the judicial branch that we're looking at now, given the fact that it looks like Merrick Garland is probably not going to be the next seat on the bench.
He's not. And this is a very important point. Donald Trump talks about bringing people together. And his first task is going to be to name a Supreme Court nominee, and those fights are ugly in Washington, and it's going to be particularly ugly here because it means it will have set the majority for the court, which is a long-lasting thing. And oh, by the way, there are maybe two other appointments Donald Trump gets to make. So the most powerful thing about the election last night may be the 30 to 40 years of jurisprudence that is locked in place because of his victory.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg is how old now?
I don't remember. 83 maybe?
Yeah.
I don't
83
know.
or 84.
Yeah.
We also now know the White House has reached out that President Obama spoke to Donald Trump, congratulated him on his victory, invited him to the White House Thursday as the transition process will thus begin. But I do want to play a bit of the president's remarks as it regarded Donald Trump back in February, which feels now forever ago.
I'll leave it to you to speculate on how this whole race is going to go. I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president. And the reason is because I have a lot of faith in the American people. And I think they recognize that being president is a serious job. It's not hosting a talk show or a reality show. It's not promotion. It's not marketing.
He made, even in being a staunch surrogate for Hillary Clinton in these final days, he made his legacy a big part of these closing arguments. What do we make of this legacy now?
Well, Obamacare is going to be torn up, which is one of the things that Donald Trump said he would do. It'll be really interesting to look at the president's approval ratings between now and when Donald Trump is inaugurated. His approval ratings went up in the course of this campaign as a lot of voters who were disappointed about the two choices looked at him in a new light and looked at him pretty favorably. The specific programs of the Obama legacy are under threat. People will argue, and many have both on the Obama side and the Republican side, that the Trump campaign is a reaction to Barack Obama, both racially and then also to his policies. The other thing though is depending on how the Trump campaign, how the Trump presidency rolls out, the previous one may look better in comparison. in the same way that George W. Bush's reputation lifted a little bit as Barack Obama was having trouble as president.
Well, we talk about race and identity politics. We're absolutely a visceral part of this race, Anthony. But there's also another aspect to this, which is borne out in statistics from places like Ohio, where Hillary Clinton lost districts that President Obama won by double digits, 13 points, 22 points. Folks who voted for him 4 years ago tossed the woman that he lashed himself to in this election cycle in favor of Donald Trump.
I think that's such an interesting separation. One thing I saw in nearly 15 years of covering the economy was a growing desperation in the middle class in America. I remember a dozen years ago in the election hearing from a middle class voter in Ohio who said to me, "The rich are taken care of, the poor are taken care of. Nobody even thinks about us." That's persisted, and first of all, they were right. Second of all, Republicans and Democrats, nobody's done anything about it. And that is something that has accumulated and is, I think, underneath a big part of this. Yes, there are other components, but there is this persistent sense that, given repeated chances, government in Washington has not recognized this problem. I think the Democrats failed in the aftermath of the recession to look at the housing crisis and what it was doing to those very middle class voters whose most important investment was losing 30% of its value.
Those people that you talk about, I mean, they hear about recovery and they think since 2007, don't say that.
Not me.
So John, for so data-driven a campaign, for a campaign of Hillary Clinton's that seemingly, up until yesterday, seemed to have left no stone unturned, how was such a big narrative spine missed there?
Oh, well, Hillary Clinton had been talking about the middle class. She talked about it all the time. I mean, remember, she's going to be a fighter for you. The things she was going to fight for was for middle class families. She talked about the middle class. The problem is Donald Trump connected at a kind of gut level with people on the middle class question.
He talked their language. I don't think she did.
Right. And she may have talked 50 times more about policy for them, but didn't talk their language.
Offering them opportunities to log onto her website and go.
Well, no, but I mean specific things. Job training for people who lost their job. Donald Trump sort of was a voice for the guy who lost his job, as opposed to, here's a really neat and interesting program that you'll be able to sign up for that will give you training and a new task. That may actually go to help that person, but it doesn't speak to that person and say to them, I'm really gonna be your fighter in Washington, which is what Donald Trump was conveying.
It is fascinating how much Democratic support among white working class voters has atrophied since the age of Bill Clinton. I mean, Anthony, we forgot Bill Clinton was on the campaign trail. Bill Clinton is the last Democrat to be able to capture parts of this country that have basically been forsaken by the Democratic Party in the intervening years.
I think one of the issues with Hillary Clinton, if you look at her, is while she discusses those policy points, I mean, frankly, you look at the amount of money the Clintons have made outside of politics, and the speeches to Goldman Sachs, all those things contributed to the impression, which is the reason she was in trouble with Bernie Sanders in the primaries, was that she looked like she was among the 1%. And that's who she was really hanging out with. And if you were looking for, help as a middle class voter, you really believe Hillary Clinton is the one who's going to give it to you? And I think I don't think she made that case compellingly.
And he certainly didn't prove to have a compelling case to make either, Bill Clinton.
No, he didn't. I mean, his connection with that, the economically challenged voter, it just wasn't. He wasn't making it. Also, he was able to make that case in opposition to George W. Bush,
but
George Herbert Walker Bush, when he was running in '92, and so he had something to push against. Whereas in this case, they were trying to defend a set of policies from the Obama administration.
And NAFTA, which Donald Trump made a huge issue.
Yeah, yeah.
From 35,000 feet up, then, John, how to lend context to the achievement of Donald Trump that took conventional wisdom and shot it into the stratosphere?
Well, he was the voice for people who feel like they have not had a representative in their own party in Washington, that the institutions are a mess, but that they're also nobody's listening to them. I mean, and there's a revulsion, and also that he benefited from being able to channel that energy, but then also he benefited from a bad candidate. I mean, Hillary Clinton had very high negatives, and as by her own admission, was not a great politician. So he benefited from that as well.
John Dickerson, Anthony Mason. It was a long day that really just became long night that became the day. But we very much appreciate the insights today.
Thanks.